Hi, we're Ailey and Daniel for Design Break, and today we're talking about using Webflow for mocking up websites.
So usually we would use a combination of Illustrator and Adobe XD to produce either a PDF file or a share link, which is what XD gives you. But the PDF file is quite static and it doesn't give the client an idea of the responsive nature of design. And the XD link actually isn't that much better, and it has its own issues. Like
Clients don't always want to use the link and they get confused by it, and
yeah,
it improves on the PDF, but because you can have buttons and stuff, but there's still some confusion there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So we're looking at the possibility of using Webflow as a design tool in the initial stages to actually create the design on Webflow, and it would be everything done in once. So it would streamline the process hugely.
Yeah. So there are some pros and cons to this, which we're kind of going to talk about and work out. But I think for our next simple web project, we're probably going to try skipping the full-on mock-up in Illustrator stage and go straight to Webflow and see how we get on.
Yeah, and we should just make a quick side note that skipping the mock-up stage doesn't mean skipping the strategy and the planning stage. So there's still the same strategy and planning that goes in. But what we found is that if we do the strategy phase and then we plan the website with the client, there's almost not a chance of them saying, oh no, the design is way off base, because we've looked at the project so closely that
so you already know what you need to do for the design. You're already getting design ideas at the strategy stage.
Yeah. So because the client's much more on board, designing everything in once.
Yeah, it's not like you need to do like 4 different styles and be like, pick one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which is one of the cons that we'll get to later.
Yes. So obviously from a workflow point of view, with Illustrator and XD, you've got the different screen sizes that you have to sort of duplicate your work when you're redoing the design for the different screen sizes. But in Webflow, you can just toggle on that responsive screen size and sort of do the design as you're going for the different screen sizes.
Yeah, and that will allow the client to see in real time exactly what it will look like on a phone, because they can open the link on their phone or on a tablet.
Yeah, because you get a preview link, so it's not like it's a published website that you're sort of experimenting with. You've got your preview link that's not really live.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Similar to the XD link, only this time it actually works.
And they can view it on their browser, so it's like feels like they're seeing their website being built in real time.
Yeah.
So the animation side of it as well is probably an important point to talk about.
Yeah, definitely. The animation tools in Webflow are fantastic. When you create a mockup in Illustrator or XD, XD has very limited tools for animation, although they are improving. If you want granular control over how the animation looks, Webflow really give you that. So you don't have to leave a note to say to the client or explain to the client, oh, this will hover. When you hover, this will move here and this will do that. Because you can actually just do it. And the Webflow animations are quite similar to PowerPoints. They're really, really easy to use and put together quickly.
I think as well from a point of view, so I've only more recently started using Webflow. Like when you're used to designing websites in Illustrator and XD, you're not really thinking about animations. But then if you've got the animations there at the design stage, you're like naturally including it. But with Illustrator, you don't even consider the animations all the time. You're kind of just, they're like almost like an afterthought built in at the build stage. So if you send the client the design and they don't like something, it's a lot easier in Webflow to make quick changes if you've named the classes correctly. Whereas in Illustrator or even XD, it's a bit harder and a longer process to make sort of tweaks and design changes.
Yeah. Should say that some changes might actually be easier in Illustrator and XD than they would be in Webflow if it's completely shuffling around the order of things. But I think what we've come to realize is that Webflow is such a great design tool that it's really not that much more difficult. So I mean, in Illustrator, you can just click a box and you can just drag it from here to there and that's it done. In Webflow, it wouldn't be such a simple process. You'd have to take, that div block that's there would have to then become nested in a different div block somewhere else. But that process isn't that much longer to where the
I think if you're in the mindset of of building a website and you know how to make the changes rather than just like dragging a box in Illustrator.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it kind of forces you to think in more of a web building space.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's really important.
And talking about classes, it's cured your messy layer naming / not naming disease.
I even name my artboards now. Artboards, layers, everything gets a name.
So organized.
Yeah. So one of the huge benefits of Webflow, and it's not specifically relating to creating mockups, but is that if a designer can create a design in Webflow, then they can also design a website, because you can publish that website once you finish the design stage. And I think I couldn't not talk about how big an advantage that is for designers, because you can export the HTML and the CSS, or you can publish it live on Webflow's platform. And it really enables designers to create fully functioning websites instantly. So although we do have knowledge of web development, it's basically allowing us to really streamline and speed up that process.
Yeah. Okay, so there's probably loads of other pros that we've missed out in using Webflow for the mockup stage, but that's the main points that we want to talk about.
Yeah, so obviously there's going to be a few situations where it's not going to work out perfectly. So if you have a complex project that's going to need a lot of thought put into exactly how people are going to use certain call to actions even. So not even just a user journey, but specifically how users will browse through certain pages. You're probably going to want to wireframe that anyway and create a wireframe of how that's going to function before you move to the design stage. Doesn't mean that Webflow couldn't come later and still be the design element, but you're going to have probably an XD prototype with the wireframe at some point in there.
Yeah, that will probably still have the design in there. It won't just be a basic structure sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Doing the mockup in Webflow can only really work, I think, if you've got the style really almost completely nailed down to client before you start the build or the mockup.
Yeah, so if you've got a mood board that you've shown them or something, or they already have a really clearly defined idea of what they want for the style, then you can create the build in Webflow. But as Ailey said, creating multiple different styles. So say you wanted to try and explore like 3 different styles.
Yeah, like a dark theme, a light style, or
would mean creating multiple Webflow projects, which isn't actually the end of the world. If you create one, you can actually duplicate the project and then just go in and change the class names, change the classes styling. So yeah, it's not the end of the world, but it's not as smooth as it would be in Illustrator.
Yeah, it feels like it's taken away the benefits of trying to streamline the process because you're still duplicating your work. Whereas the iterative design would be much easier done, I think, in XD.
Yeah.
I might be lying there though.
Who knows, but we'll find out.
I think we ran out of con.
Yeah, I can't really think of anything else off the top of my head right now, but I guess we'll find out when we start. This is kind of a part 1. We'll update you in the future with part 2 once we've actually had first-hand experience of working this way. And next week I'll have another Webflow video which will be exploring whether you can create a website in Webflow without having any development knowledge whatsoever. So if you're a designer who's not even touched anything digital other than Illustrator or some other design tool, but can you create a website in Webflow without any of this previous knowledge? So look out for that one.
Oh, and check out the link below to join our group to get involved in the discussion.
So yeah, if you like the video, please hit like, and if you subscribe to our channel, you'll get updates when we post new content. And that's it from us. See you in the next one.